creator of the NRC brand, gives his insight and thoughts on the world of comic books, gaming, tech, and media industries as the host of Neo Reality Collective. Experience a slew of regular episodes covering news and pop culture, along with reviews and editorial pieces showcasing the best and worst of our ever-expanding multimedia world.
Welcome everyone to Neo Reality Collective. I am your host, Eric Brown, and we are back again with the 92nd episode, or the overall 138th episode of this entire massive episodic series, combined with all the other spin-offs and conversations that we've had over the last year in the show. But, yeah, so remember what happened last time? So, well, before we get into the news of this week, I wanted to cover this part. WarnerBros shut down Monolith Productions. Yeah, just after the last episode I made, after I uploaded it and got it up on publication on my YouTube channel, WarnerBros Discovery shut down Monolith Productions and a bunch of other studios, and then they proceeded to violently cancel Wonder Woman, a game that I was really looking forward to, and all the potential DLC they could have done. And to compound the matter and make it worse for everybody, they announced that they are not releasing their patent control on the Nemesis system and let someone else work on it. Oh boy. Because, let me be clear, the Nemesis system is awesome, and it should have been allowed to go out into the wild of gaming industry and let it be done for other properties, established, new, experimental ideas. Heck, imagine if Halo Infinite's open world gameplay for single player mode had the Nemesis system installed, especially with how the story was being presented. Like, it really makes me think, you know, the way that this works, it sounds like it really would have been greater with the Nemesis system attached to it, with all these generals and whatnot that you're hunting down. But, yeah, but that's a completely different matter. With the open world gameplay, it would have been interesting to add the Nemesis system or take on it into its overall development, but we'll never know until the mid-2030s if we make it that long, considering how much the world sucks these days. And also, just to clarify, I am not talking about Nintendo Switch 2, because if I do, I will be here for 5 freaking hours, and if I do, I will rant, and we will never get anything done. So, yeah, I gotta cut that out. I might make a separate episode, but I am not certain about doing it yet. All I'm gonna say is this. We live in a society. Yeah, that about sums it up. But, as that was going on, also in the last episode, I mentioned how RoosterTeeth, after being gone for about 6 to 8 months by WarnerBros Discovery's destruction of it, after a slow, agonizing process, RoosterTeeth came back. Bernie Burns bought the company and what remained of it and made that homecoming video. So far, no updates been given on that, besides the press release that did come out the same day as the homecoming video. But the reason why I bring that up is primarily because not only did that return within half a year, Game Informer's back. Yeah, so please note that these 20-plus-year-old companies died 6 months ago and then came back. I would say congratulations, but it just reminds me I'm old. But yeah, after GameStop shut down Game Informer back in 2024 of August, it came back with the whole team returning this time, unlike RoosterTeeth, which is still having which is all their founders and all their workers have moved on to independent projects and independent studios, more or less. Gunzilla Games secured the rights to Game Informer from GameStop, and they was planning to bring back not only the editorial team but production and beyond in an article published called Letter from the Editor. And Gunzilla Games is the game developer and publisher behind the free-to-play extraction battle royale game called Off the Grid, and blah 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 blah, and utilizing I don't want to get into that, but like, yeah, it's basically developed. Its new owner was Neil Blomkamp. I'm pretty sure I failed to pronounce that name, but like now Game Informer is allowed to operate under a new entity called Game Informer Incorporated, and everything that was shut off, everything that was quote deleted, has been restored to the Game Informer website, which means, hurrah, we are so back! And congratulations to Game Informer for their big return. We'll see what comes next from all this. But yeah, I was ecstatic to hear they were back, especially with the injustice of how they got out. I still remember being this kid, and every time I would egg my grandma on to let me subscribe to that magazine when I was a young lad, and I still remember having hosts and hosts of magazines I collected during my elementary school years for 5 years, so please help me on that. And I had, instead of preserving them like I used to, like I do with comics, I stuffed them under my bed because I was lazy. Ain't I a stinker? And then when we moved eventually and things kind of went crazy, I had to throw away all the old magazines I had, which sucked looking back on it. But I'm glad to see that the digital age has at least allowed us to preserve it, especially archive.org, even with GameStop probably throwing a hissy fit about it. But it's nice to see that their archive is alive and well, and that the future is still really linked to its past. And, you know, I actually did try to reach out to them a little bit after they came back, probably wanting to cut a deal with them. I don't know if anything's going to happen with that. I've never got a response back. Could be cool, could be interesting if I do. But yeah, it's been a wild ride, and to see Game Informer coming back, they got a lot to cover up on. And it just stinks that, well, you know, that they were gone for 6 to 8 months and there was a lot of news going on. But now that they're back, let's see what they do. Let's see. Let's effing go. And thank God they're allowed to be independent now and not be adhered to the corporations of GameStop and other monolithic companies. I do hope they rant about WarnerBros Discovery's incompetence, especially with how they've handled the Warner Bros. Games lineup. But moving on. So, according to developers at CD Projekt Red, The Witcher 4. So, remember that teaser trailer that came out last year? Well, once again, we're getting another Wonder Woman treatment. We won't be getting this game until 2027. It will have been 2024, 3 years, and depending on how bad and depending on how chaotic it gets, considering what happened last time with their last big game and the amount of time it took to repair that reputation, and even then that still left bruises on their status. I would give it 2029 to 30 at this point. Like, yeah, so, yeah. Speaking of the financial call outlining projections of future profits, CD Projekt says that even though we do not plan to release The Witcher 4 by the end of 2026, we are still driven by this financial goal, and although it's very ambitious, we stand a chance of achieving it within the given time frame. That rules out a launch this year, and currently sets out a launch next year, which some help for it says 2027 as the earliest for The Witcher 4. So, give it 2027 to 2030. Like, let's be real. And honestly, I hope they learned their and considering 2027 is said to be the year when the Xbox Series X's successor and the Xbox handheld is coming. And rumor about that is a completely different animal. I don't want to get into that since I want to wait till an official announcement happens. And there's also probably going to be the Sony PS6. And if they go overboard like they did last time with CD Projekt Red, I sincerely hope they don't do the cross-gen solution with Xbox Series X and the whatever the next Xbox will be called. And considering how it's been rumored, and I will just say this, there have been rumors about them trying to go for a Windows OS system that will allow us to play our Steam games, which if that is true, I'll be all for that. But I'll just be like, oh dear. Ignoring the tribalist that is the Sony community that I've been hearing came out of the woodworks from that, my only response is, okay, I'll wait until I hear an announcement. I'm not going to get excited for that. But if they actually do that route, then they might have a chance to go all out with the game, since Xbox would be operating with a Windows system, though they probably would still have to contend with PlayStation's architecture because PlayStation and Sony can be very stubborn. We still don't have Helldivers on Xbox. No matter how many times I wish I could dream for that. Like, I have it on PC, I just don't play as much, even though I've seen the chaotic stuff that I wish I could do, but I'm just not used to playing on a PC like I used to be. Oh, I've gotten old. So, Naughty Dog's Neil Druckmann talked about questions about the future of the Last of Us video game series. Fans were wondering where the story might go after the HBO seasons 2 and 3 cover off the second video game. Earlier in the month, Neil Druckmann had cast doubts about the prospect of The Last of Us 3, saying, I guess the only thing I would say is don't bet on there being more of Last of Us. This could be it. So, so ahead of The Last of Us Season 2 premiere, IGN had asked Neil Druckmann straight up, saying that, would you be open to letting the HBO show end the series? And Neil Druckmann says, I have to have an ending. When I made The Last of Us 1, I didn't know if there was going to be a sequel, so that had to be a definitive ending. When I worked on Uncharted 4, I don't know if that will ever get to do it again. I needed it to be a definitive ending. Last of Us 2, same way. All things have to line up. I don't know how long they'll keep doing this or whether I'll be given an opportunity, so I'll leave nothing on the line. Right now it's like we have an ending in mind, and that ending will be it, and that ending will be it for this story. So, they were asked about the prospect of having that if he will even have the time to make Last of Us 3, which were to be greenlit for production. That's because of his projects with the Last of Us TV show. And he recently reported an announced game, Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet. I honestly am not interested. It didn't look interesting to me, but that's opinion that might change. But Druckmann said this: as far as everything else, and you've been asking me about future games, my time so much is we have to finish the season. We're not quite done yet. We're almost there. Knock on the wood. We get to do it again. Season 3, there's a lot more story we have to cover, as you know, with Game 2. Then my hands are pretty full with Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet. And he did say in 2024 of February that he did tease a concept for a potential Last of Us 3, and noting that there is probably one more chapter to that story, saying the first game has such a clean concept of like the unconditional love a parent feels for their child. The second one, once we landed on this idea of the pursuit of justice at any cost, justice for the ones you love, we felt like that's a clean concept there, and that there's a storyline from the first game about love. If we never get to do it again, this is the fine ending point. That's by the apple, the story's done. Except everyone hated that ending, and everyone hated that game, especially in terms of its story. And I still recall the vitriolic hate that game got. And my god, I am still stunned by how hatred it got. Like, I was like, oh boy. I am so glad I do not work in gaming when I have to deal with that. Even though I don't blame the developers for this. This was a story executive decision probably. And probably looking back they regret it. I don't know, but they kind of have to work with what they got unless they want to go with the "it was a dream" scenario, which will make everyone hate that idea. And honestly, there were rumors going around that The Last of Us TV show was set to have 5 seasons. And honestly, I'm kind of against having season 2 and 3 be involved doing season 2. I mean, doing the second game entirely already. I feel like they could have, if they wanted to, they should have let us do what happened between the first and second games as seasons 2 and 3, then do 4 and 5 with the Last of Us 2, just so we can get that emotional resonance we get when that moment comes with Joel and Ellie. But now they just wanted to head into season 2 with the second game, and I'm just like, you had an opportunity there to expand the characters and probably even have a chance to, quote, redeem the second game by saying this is canon, that the in-between stories is canon to the games and set between them. That could have fixed some things for people potentially, depending on how they executed it. But no, we're just going to get the second game already telling the story in seasons 2 and 3. Yeah. Sucks, doesn't it? And then he also had said that then Neil Druckmann came out and also said that, yeah, the Heretic Prophet reportedly won't make to 2026. So, yeah, Heretic Prophet versus The Witcher 4. Let's go with that. Meanwhile, Scooby-Doo is set to debut on Netflix as a live action series, because we all know how that works out. And it's a, quote, modern reimagining of the iconic mystery solving group of teens and their very special dog. And then there's an actual supernatural murder. Oh god. But anyways, when they kept saying the modern reimagining, I was like, oh god, please, look, look, you can reimagine it however possible, so long as it respects the source material. Just do not do what you did with Velma, please. And please tell me that's never going to happen again. We all know how that was. But one thing I did like hearing, is that Shaggy and Daphne are actually old friends in this before all this, and then they meet Velma and Fred. And yeah, and they talk about a lonely lost Great Dane puppy that may have been a witness to a supernatural murder and whatnot. Oh god, another origin story. Whereas usually it's Scooby's already with Shaggy, and we don't know the origin backstory. And I do think in the Mystery Incorporated series that ever got a really proper ending to their story was that Scooby was actually an eldritch creature that just doesn't remember it or something. And then we just lost him after. And then that Scooby-Doo show that came out that looks like a Family Guy animation parody. And then there was Velma, and they said no Scooby on there, even though that's kind of messed up. But yeah, plus at least it ended with Scrappy-Doo finally redeeming himself by killing Velma, so I say we won there. Oh god, we were so cruel. Fans were royally cruel about that, saying that they finally apologized to Scrappy-Doo for all that. But don't worry, if WarnerBros thinks about this and they'll bring him back from this, they'll immediately hate the character again. But yeah. Though I would like if they just released that Scoob animation project they had that was tax written off. I'd love to just resolve that since it was already freaking done. I'll get to stuff like that later. Meanwhile, GameStop has announced in changing its investment policy that the gaming giant formerly will will be closing a significant number of stores in the fiscal year of 2025, and it has not been identified how much stores will be shut down, and that its board has unanimously approved an update to its investment policy, adding to the Treasury Reserve asset Bitcoin. And the company said a portion of its cash and future debt equity insurances may be invested into Bitcoin. Now, like, you lost me at cryptocurrency. Like, you already destroyed Game Informer and they had to be brought back from the brink. And now you're trying to invest in Bitcoin because if I had to take the wildest guess, it has to do with a certain guy who's in the White House trying to make Bitcoin and cryptocurrency the next big thing again. And we don't want to talk about that particular dude. And if we ever do talk about him, I will have to go and form a political podcast, and I do not want to do that because I will be ranting for 5 hours at that point. Every week. Heck, screw it, I could go every day if I wanted to, if I had the time. But anyways, Marvel also was announcing that Marvel Cosmic Invasion is set to release from the developer of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, which is a retro beat-em-up game taking a page off of the visual homage to the official 90s era's comic books. And the first set of characters that were revealed were Captain America, Wolverine, Spider-Man, Storm, Phalanx, Venom, and Nova. And Annihilus is coming in, saying his unprecedented attack across the galaxies. And, you know, the heroes of Earth and the cosmic heroes must join forces in a star-spanning adventure against the deadly annihilation wave. It actually raises an interesting question. Imagine if they made Crisis on Infinite Earths as a video game with multiple choices and all that, and action-adventure heroics. That'd be awesome. I'm like, provide Warner Bros. Doesn't screw it up or make it a live service. So, moving on from that, Assassin's Creed Shadows came out. They won't reveal the numbers. They just keep touting how many people are playing. And considering they have a subscription service that lets you get instant access to it, and they have to be making something unless people pirated it. In which case, they're kind of screwed there. But, yeah. Ubisoft is currently having a bunch of flops, studio closures, layoffs, and game cancellations in the run-up to Assassin's Creed Shadows' multiply delayed release. And as Ubisoft looks like it's about to destroy itself, at the cost of $1.25 billion, Tencent has arrived to save what's left. So Ubisoft has announced it has created a subsidiary company based on its Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Tom Clancy and Rainbow Six brands, with a big investment from Chinese megacorp Tencent. And they said this new subsidiary, which is valued at $4.3 billion and based in France, will focus on building game ecosystems designed to become truly evergreen and multi-platform. Tencent's take his stakes to amount 25%. Ubisoft added saying, backed by great investments and boosted creative capacities, it will further drive increases in quality of narrative solo experiences, expand multiplayer offerings with increased frequency of content release, introduce free-to-play touch points, and integrate more social features. And said it will focus on the development of its Ghost Recon Division franchise and grows its top-performing games. Today, Ubisoft is opening a new chapter in its history. Yves Guillemot, aka the guy who secretly had a horrible culture in that company, and everyone just kind of forgot about it and moved on, probably except for James Stephanie Sterling, who has a personal matter in that problem. But besides that, ignore the past. Somehow, even what they did was horribly, unethically, and cruel. I guess one of the reasons I went on a massive hiatus from Ubisoft for so long, I only had just decided to get Assassin's Creed Shadows because F it at this point. I mean, oh god. Anyways, they go ahead and talk about the company's transformation and this foundational step in changing the operating model that will enable them to be both agile and ambitious and probably get more money. Yeah, they made this subsidiary. They haven't even announced what the name is, and it's expected to be complete by the end of 2025. Honestly, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if Ubisoft sold the whole company to Tencent, or hell, there was even rumors going around that they were considering selling off their IPs to liquidate and accumulate to pay off their debts of the executives, to sell certain IPs to other studio companies and like Microsoft handling Assassin's Creed and all that. I don't know if that would have worked. I mean, like Rainbow Six, I could imagine it being sold to Microsoft, especially since Halo's already been involved in that development. Yeah, Master Chief was a character in Rainbow Six Siege, so that should say something. So that could have had a chance. Assassin's Creed is the more memorable franchise, so I could see Microsoft trying to get that. But Far Cry, it's been kind of in this middle ground from where it started, and I kind of forgot about it for some time. I even forgot that there was a Far Cry 6. I just remember playing Far Cry 5 and hating the two endings we got, and I was like, you mean to tell me we're screwed either way? Way to go. So, yeah. So remember that WarnerBros Discovery shutdown of gaming studios? Well, they also canceled Hogwarts Legacy's DLC they had planned. That would have released this year alongside a definitive edition of the game, saying the amount of content was not substantially enough to justify the price being considered. Damn it. Like, I never got into Harry Potter. I've said this before. My grandmother loves it, but I personally could never get into it. Like, I've tried. I watched the first few movies, and I know it got darker and more intense as the story went on. I know about Voldemort and all that, he who must not be named, and whatnot, and I'm just like, something's just not clicking with me. It just doesn't. I don't know why, but it's just something that just doesn't seem to work with me for some reason. Maybe it's because it's always been locale to others, to just a few couple settings from time to time. I don't know. And J.K. Rowling really killed any chance of me trying to get back into looking at it because of J.K. Rowling's awful behavior. And the fact that, and Warner Bros. Could have easily fixed that if they had just cut J.K. Rowling off, like they reportedly were considering doing, buy the entire intellectual property of the franchise from J.K. Rowling. But J.K. Rowling, begrudgingly, understandably so, probably refused because it's like, so let's make it straight. You're expecting me to go ahead and sell my IP that gives me money every single freaking day, more money than you could ever imagine. I get a cut of it for one moment of money. And I'm pretty sure Warner Bros. Was like, God damn it, we've been caught. But yeah, Meanwhile, on to more positive development news. Saber Interactive and Focus Entertainment had announced Space Marine 3 in mid-March, just 6 months after Space Marine 2 came out. And that basically is, as people sparked concern about the future of Space Marine 2, since there was a big roadmap. And they said that we're saying the record straight, we're not abandoning the second game following the Space Marine 3 announcement. And if I had to guess, they're probably going to be like, we announced this as a proof, and we have a small team working on it, but until we get everything settled with Space Marine 2, then we'll start going full throttle with Space Marine 3. That's my theory, at least. But at least they're addressing it immediately instead of being annoying about it and never addressing it and making everyone have an anxiety attack. But, yeah. Good luck. I haven't played Space Marine 2 yet. I was considering it, but then personal matters took priority, and I couldn't really do that. Yeah, speaking of other great news in the industry, Steven Yeun, who plays Mark from Invincible and also plays as Glenn from Walking Dead, has reportedly joined the upcoming animated Aang Avatar movie, and it's been renamed now, and there's been no other big developments other than the rumors that it was in development with the name Aang the Last Airbender, which I'm excited to see what happens. Yeah, and especially, especially since I am curious about the fact that they're doing this, because here's the thing, he actually, I could be wrong, but didn't Steven Yeun play a character in the series? Yeah, Juan, I believe. Oh yeah, he played Juan, so there's a chance that he might come back as the character and might connect with Aang, probably. Especially since we can't do anything now with Korra and the Avatar who succeeds her, and the less I talk about that crazy thing, can of worms that had opened up, the better. Meanwhile, an ex-PlayStation executive talks about Nier Automata. The game that basically made everyone question the nature of reality. So, yeah, that game. One of the former executives says that game revived the Japanese game industry and convinced it to stop chasing overseas trends. Now, if only Sony could actually take that to heart again and also say, hey, how about we stop screwing the customers over and just tell a complete story? Never! Okay. So, yeah, he talks about how the game kind of set the tone for Japan's gaming market to try and revive itself and stop copying stuff from the overseas trend during the PS3 era. And yeah, and trying not to be like all about being a marketable game, instead trying to be like a, hey, this is the team's vision, let's just go with it instead of worrying about everyone else's problems. At least until it becomes a franchise, and then we start panicking for some strange messed up reason. But, yeah. Shigeru Miyamoto, speaking in Japan, came out and announced that on their new big app, that coming out in March 26, 2027, we're getting Legend of Zelda. Hooray! And it's in live action. Wow, you somehow screwed this up. I don't even know how you did it. I'm just... Oh, God. Look, I get Sonic the Hedgehog kicked ass only because they didn't piss everyone off after the disaster and acknowledge that, yeah, they made a mistake and reworked the whole animation part. I gotta say this. I just need to say this. Why does it need to be live action? Why couldn't it just be another animation project like the Mario movie that recently came out a few years back? Like, because people have been wanting to have Nintendo just go with Illumination Entertainment to go ahead and make a Nintendo animated shared universe, or in the Legend of Zelda's case, they can make a dual universe, essentially, and eventually cross over into, or a shared multiverse, and eventually cross over into the Super Smash Bros. Movie that people have been wanting to see for a long, long time. But it's like, why make this live action? it's just annoying for me. I just feel like it. And yeah. And then they keep talking about how, and then Wes Ball, the person who made the Maze Runner series, okay, that's initially concerning. Kingdoms of the Planet of the Apes, oh well, that everyone loves that, so so that's not all bad. Set to direct it with Ava Adrid and Nintendo Shigeru Miyamoto, and if you're wondering who Ava is, it's basically the person who handles all the Spider-Man stuff, and especially all the spin-off Spider-Man Sony movies. Yeah, Sony Pictures is involved in this, so immediately despair. And Shigeru Miyamoto's producing, and it's like, okay, he loves this, but here's the other thing that annoyed me. People were freaking out immediately when they heard who the writer was and say, wait, he wrote episode 9 of Star Wars. And I just want to point this out. No, he didn't. Okay, he technically did, in the way that means he did write episode 9. He just didn't write The Rise of Skywalker. He wrote The Duel of Fates. And everyone still says that that's the more superior version that they should have gotten, instead of the despairing, nihilistic thing we got at the end of all this. And the more I talk about Star Wars, I will scream. Because every time when I talk about Star Wars, I love it, and yet I, for some reason, have an unquenchable hatred for what they have done. And then, my other big concern when they were talking about the movie, besides the whole Sony involvement, is they talk about how they want it to be a live-action Miyazaki-like film experience. No. There is no live-action Miyazaki because he never made, as far as I'm aware, he didn't make a live-action film. Why can't you just do animation? Why is it so scary to just make a live-action Zelda? And then I found out that he wants to make this be a serious adaptation that feels real, and has made clear he doesn't intend to use much motion capture in the quote grounded film. And it's like, oh my god, like, can't we just embrace the madness of these games instead of trying to make it grounded and real and serious? Like, I'm all for serious adaptation. It's just that when you're dealing with a franchise that has a floating ball of light that serves as your life force essentially in the game, and there's a guy who keeps coming back over and over and over, and there's a holy crud of continuity questions people always keep wondering, and time travel and all that. How do you make that grounded? Can't you just embrace it? Embrace the insanity of it all? Like, for all intents and purposes, at least, I can't believe I'm going to say this, the original Super Mario Bros. Movie, it was set in the real world, but it was at least admitting it was insane. It wasn't good, but it wasn't because it was embracing the madness that this franchise is known for. It just wasn't good. It just wasn't a good movie. And they kept setting up a sequel, even though there was a huge guarantee this probably wasn't going to work. Like, if they did it now, at least I would get it. But back then, no. Unless you had some success in the past beforehand that doesn't involve animation and cartoons, but that's a different matter. But, yeah. It's just something that bugs me for some reason. I don't know. So Soma developer Frictional Games has come out about that Jacksepticeye was working on an unannounced Soma animated show before it fell apart out of nowhere, and yeah, he revealed this on his has revealed it, and he was left quite upset about it, calling it a bad month in his video. And he talked about not only the reveal of the existence of a Soma animated show, but it had been canceled which is a survival horror science fiction video game from Amnesia developer Frictional Games, launched back in 2015, was met with critical acclaim. So because actually it was getting popular, Hollywood probably wanted to get involved, and then they hate popularity. But yeah, apparently it fell apart. The Jazzaptic guy came out and said the show fell apart abruptly after an unnamed party suggested they wanted to do it in a different direction. So basically probably not do anything that makes it so iconic for people. But he deliberately left out the specifics because he was left so upset by it. We were making really great progress on that, then it just all fell apart out of nowhere. I'm not going to go into too many specifics because I'm quite upset about what actually went down, but it's more of a we're going in a different direction kind of vibe, and that really upset me. He did not name the party involved, and IGN did try to ask what Frictional for comment, and yeah, they did get a comment from them, and they don't want us to talk about any specific project due to a NDA, because that's the most popular word for me I've been hearing since 2021 and 2022. And out of respect for other parties, they did provide some insight to the recent developments, saying what we can say is that we recently had to turn down or delay some of the many external opportunities knocking on our door, even though we had personally loved to see the game getting realized. However, many times we just have to face the fact that some external initiatives require more effort from us than we currently have to spare. We are a small studio, and currently almost everyone on the team is heads down working on our upcoming game. This has unfortunately forced us to decline certain opportunities in order to not spread ourselves too thin, even though they've sounded fun and promising. So basically, it's a nothing burger. It's basically saying it was too big to be small, and too small to be big for us. We were too big to be small, too small to be big, kind of mentality. Whereas this is saying that there were external factors that stopped it from happening. And here's the thing. The only thing I'm thinking of when it comes to saying we're taking the series into a different direction and everyone hates it, it reminds me of what happened when Until Dawn got an adaptation announcement, and I was originally excited because I did enjoy Until Dawn, the original. And then they announced the movie, and I looked it up what the movie was about, and then I was like, that's not Until Dawn. Like, like, you could call that movie anything else, but that is not Until Dawn. With the time loop nonsense. Like, that just came out of nowhere, out of left field. And I'm just like, yeah, that's not Until Dawn. That's a completely different movie. Why are you calling it Until Dawn? Like, I know they come up with a, quote, in-story explanation, but it's like, when you said Until Dawn is going to be adapted into a movie, you're expecting it to be an adaptation of the game. It's like, that definitely is not the game. It could have been another game that did that, but no, this is not Until Dawn. It's not involving a bunch of teenagers who are in a cabin in the middle of the mountains and grieving over the fact that two girls are missing and then will be revealed to be dead, and the brother has kind of lost his mind. And that makes the whole remake they released that gives us that adds a new ending that probably should have been in the first game, in the original game, makes me think, wait, why? If you're just going to remake the game and set up a sequel eventually, why make it now with the movie not being the adaptation of the game? Like, it just confused me. I don't get this. Also, there's been rumors now that Final Fantasy IX's 25th anniversary website launched, and now there's been a lot of hype about the idea that that it's going to get a remake soon announced, and especially since it's going to be the 25th anniversary of Final Fantasy IX. It came out in July of 2000, and it's been a quarter of a century. And I'm 30 years old this year soon. a month after this. Oh god. Okay. I think we need to take a brief break. We'll be back after this brief respite, but I need to consider my mental state, because I just realized I'm going to be 30 this year, and everything that was once new and fresh is now nostalgic and retro. Oh god, I'm old.
The White Queen's reign begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. I sure hope that small little brief intermission of what is being teased right now is currently up your mind, and probably for the very horny crowd, I'm pretty sure we know where that's going. Anyways, speaking of Marvel, Daredevil Born Again has been doing pretty damn well. Like, I am surprised at how good it's doing. That big reboot that happened in production is certainly working in their benefit, especially since they're not doing what they originally were going to do. And man, that was awful what the plan was. But ever since the success of it, there have been rumors circulating for season 2 that the Defenders, all remaining Defenders, Iron Fist, Danny Rand, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage are getting the band back together for Born Again. And when I heard that, I was like, man, I would love, and they certainly have teased on a couple of occasions that they're still around and they're still canon in the MCU with the return of the Netflix series. But when it's been 7 years since Danny Rand was last seen back in season 2 of the Iron Fist and in the Defenders, and we know how Iron Fist Finn Jones was received by that, and he says that he wants to be given an effing chance. He wants to prove people wrong, that he can be a good adaptation of the character, and I think he could have been. It's just the pressure, I think, and the fact that according to Netflix, that Marvel had very, very budgeted constraints on it. On the universe of that side of Marvel was kind of forbidden, and Danny Rand kind of operates in a more mystic level. So yeah, but Daredevil's comeback has raised hope of the continuation of the Defenders, and recent reports indicate Marvel was exploring the idea, and that's pretty damn good. I would love to see Mike Coulter and Jessica Jones as Kristen Ritter come back. Oh man, I still remember what happened when I went to Baltimore Comic-Con. I saw Mike Coulter after the events of Luke Cage Season 2. I had taken a picture of him, asked him straight up if he's ever going to be in the Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, because I thought for sure, since they're going to have some New York moments, that they would show up, brief cameo, help Iron Man, Tony Stark, and Doctor Strange taking on the Black Order of Thanos. And then 2 weeks after that convention, Luke Cage was canceled. So I'm sorry, Mike Coulter. I got your show canceled for asking questions, even though it was like 1 minute, and I was wearing an awesome shirt at that time, and I still have the picture to this day, both saved on my phone and a photo op of it. Oh man. But yeah, I kind of jokingly blame myself for that, for the cancellation of Luke Cage. It was like so out of nowhere. Oh man. Those were the days. Man. Before the dark times. Before the pandemic. Wow. And all that. And yeah, he acknowledged at recent conventions that his portrayal was like, that it wasn't as good. Acknowledge the criticisms and how there are fans that want to see it happen again and want to see fans not happen. But he's very aware of the critiques of the character and his role in it. But he wants to be given one more chance to prove people wrong. And I certainly think Finn Jones can do it. Like he probably has improved a lot for people, and he could probably prove people wrong, especially better. And here's the thing: there were rumors that they were developing a new Iron Fist show. When I heard that, I was like excited, but then it came out that they were thinking of not having Danny Rand take be Iron Fist. It just has a female character take it. And when I first heard it, I was like, oh, it's that other girl that's the girlfriend of Iron Fist. Like, she was given the powers of Iron Fist, but then it was coming out that it wasn't going to be her, it was going to be someone else. And I was like, why? You had a perfect setup to have her be Iron Fist with Danny Rand and do that, but like, why can't they both be Iron Fist? Like, we have two Daredevils now in the comics, so it's not out of the question. And it's gotten so crazy that there are two Daredevils now. It's such a radical change from the mythos at the time when Chip Zdarsky reintroduced Elektra as the new Daredevil, that they've kept it since. And while there's been some friction between Elektra and Daredevil, they're still, both sharing the mantle. So why can't there be two Iron Fists? I mean, like, we're in a world where people kind of, I don't want to say fully accepting of the fact that there's like multiple mantle heroes sharing the same mantle. Like, there's two Captain Americas, there's like an infinite number of Green Lanterns, there's other characters sharing other similar mantles like Black Canary, Red Canary, there's also Green Arrow, Red Arrow, there's also the Flash, Kid Flash, and all that. There's like several of them. I'm not saying people fully accept that. In fact, in the Young Justice cartoon, there's now 3 Aquamen running around before the show was abruptly ended again, which sucked. And there have been like 3 Batmen, 2 running at the same time. And there's been like how many Robins? And there's actually 2, though Damian Wayne recently announced he was leaving the mantle and wants to retire from the Robin mantle to do something else. I'm interested to see where that goes. He wants to be a doctor like his grandfather, Thomas Wayne, so that's awesome. But I know there's a mixed response when it comes to the multiple characters sharing the mantle. Like, some hate it, some love it, some were like okay with it, some aren't, and whatnot. Like, they give the Green Lantern Corps a pass because that's not really a superhero title. It's an organization in cosmic space. But it's like, but they have acknowledged in the comics, there's like, why do we keep getting so many Green Lantern Earth-based heroes coming in? Like, we first had Hal Jordan, then we had, first we had Alan Scott, then we had Hal Jordan, then we had Jon Stewart, then we had Guy Gardner, then we had, Kyle Rayner, then we had, and then they started calling themselves the Four Corpsmen, like they're the Four Horsemen of Wrestling, but this time for the Green Lantern Corps. There's also Jessica Cruz, Simon Bays, who were introduced in the New 52. That's like 7 so far, I think. And then there's Jo, but I think she's from Earth. I certainly kept thinking she was from Earth, but she operates outside of Earth, so naturally you don't have to worry about that. But like, there's like, 7, 8 Earth-based Green Lanterns running around at the same time, and some are operating on Earth. Like, I get the confusion on that. And also, I still recall there's like a bunch of Captain Britons in the comics currently. There's Betsy Braddock's Captain Britain, there's her brother who is also Captain Britain. Then they resurrected the entire Captain Britain Corps that operates in the epicenter of the multiverse and all that. Yeah, it's complicated, I know. In the Excalibur series that Tini Howard penned, they brought back the Captain Britain Corps, especially after the events of Ten of Swords. Awesome event. during the Krakoan era. But, like, that's just my point. Like, people can give in to the idea that there are several organizations that have the same title, but when there's multiple heroes saying the same title, they're like, I don't know how to feel about that. Like, I get, like, I'm probably just okay with it, like, as long as they differentiate the characters and make them uniquely them, and, you know, and instead of the constant racism I constantly see sometimes when they talk about Miles Morales and Sam Wilson being Spider-Man and Captain America and saying, oh no, they're not that, but why can't they just be someone else? And it's like, or they want to revert them to their previous identity, but Miles Morales didn't start off being a hero beforehand. His was given by accident during the events of Ultimate Spider-Man's finale when Peter Parker was killed in the Ultimate Universe. Yeah, like, this is a heavy subject. I don't even know how to go fully into it, but it's just like if you want Sam Wilson to be Falcon again, like, that's one topic you can go to. But, like, I'm used. I just, like, he was being Captain America before the movies happened, so. And Bucky Barnes was Captain America, and no one complained about that. Though they'll probably argue, well, Steve Rogers was dead at the time, and they're all alive right now, and I'm just like. So, if the character was dead, you'd be alright with that? Yet, it didn't happen with Miles Morales, and, like, there was people who didn't like Ironheart, but because Riri Williams was just not popular with people, like, and there were people that were making comparisons about why is Miles Morales accepted, but Riri Williams isn't, and I actually thought it was pretty freaking simple. Like, I said this, I said, wait, you're debating about this? It's kind of simple. Miles Morales is from the Ultimate Universe. That's a separate continuity. Riri Williams was, at the time, temporarily replacing the character that started all the way back in the 60s, and he was dead, especially during the height of the MCU. It just seemed like a real weird whiplash. And then he came back as an artificial intelligence. Yeah, the comic books are confusing. He apparently planned for all this, and then he was dead, then he came back and cloned himself, and yeah, like I said, comic books are confusing, but, like, yeah. But before I keep going down the rabbit hole of these whole legacy stuff, let's move on. PS5 exclusive Ghost of Yotei gets new story info, commits to 2025 release date, saying it takes place 300 years after the events of Ghost of Tsushima. A new warrior rises from the ashes of her homestead, filled with fury and determination. I can't pronounce her name, so I'm not going to try. She will hunt down those responsible for the death of her family and exact her revenge. Every odd job bounty will provide the coin she needs for her journey, but how she fights, survives, and evolves the legend of the ghost will be up to you, the player. Here's the thing I was curious about. When I heard Ghost of Yotei was coming out, I did plan to make a video about that, a podcast about that, but then I got delayed with everything in life, especially during Thanksgiving month, November. That was a busy time. I actually wanted to say this because it made sense to me. People freaked when Ghost of Yotei was first announced, saying there's been no such thing as female samurai, and I just Googled it, like, were there female samurais in Japan? And it took me like 10 whole seconds to learn that there was in history that there were female samurais. They had a different name, but, like, they were ultimately samurais, and they were women, but yeah, that was a bad day. This was like the whole Yasuke incident, where they keep arguing if he was real, and they also keep arguing if he was a samurai or if he was just a retainer. And I'm just like, there's evidence to suggest he is real, but there's also suggestions that he could have been a samurai or just a retainer, or, well, there's so much mysticism to him that they could go either way. But either way, the history would make sense. And here's the thing, and Mighty Keith talked about this in his parody video about Ghost of Yotei's announcement, where he looked at the year of when Ghost of Yotei takes place to Yasuke when they mentioned Assassin's Creed Shadows, and theoretically, Ghost of Yotei takes place at a time where Yasuke could theoretically still be alive in his 40s or 50s. And he could be alive during that time. And I'm just thinking to myself, oh my god, Sony has the chance to do the biggest fun, the biggest pissing people off mode ever. Like, if people were pissed off that Yasuke was a samurai in Japan when that was announced, I am morbidly curious to see what their reaction will be to see a female samurai teaming up with the legendary black samurai. It's like, oh god. That's gonna be that's gonna be the storm on there if he shows up in the game, especially since it's so close after Assassin's Creed Shadow came out, theoretically speaking. It'd just be awesome to see. Like, would it be interesting to see a Ghost of Yotei take on Yasuke after 1582 and it's set in this time period where he's 40 or 50 years old? Yeah, there's so much mystery about what happened to him after that you can theoretically make it work. Heck, someone could actually try to, like, I'm pretty sure I'm expecting this. For fanfiction, they could probably mix up Ghost of Tsushima, Assassin's Creed Shadows, and Ghost of Yotei and have them all take place in the same universe. I'm honestly expecting a fanfiction work to be made eventually about that. I will probably, if they do it right, I'll probably enjoy it. But we'll see. We'll see. But speaking of projects that had people up in arms, but for this one it was more righteous and less racist fueled, or historical talk fuel, remember Coyote versus ACME, that big comedy legal drama they were going to release, and then WarnerBros was like, nah, screw animation, unless it's awesome, or Game of Thrones, or something, but like Looney Tunes, that's not even relevant anymore, even though there are people that still want to see the Looney Tunes show come back. So, March 31st, we won, everybody. Coyote vs. ACME finds a new home in Ketchup Entertainment. Much like the release of The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, and Ferrera, they have announced that for the pricing of about, I think it was $30 million, Coyote vs. ACME has survived. It is now free from the tyranny of WarnerBros Discovery and in the arms of Ketchup Entertainment, which makes me go, can we just let them handle Looney Tunes for the foreseeable future? Just license it out to them, because clearly they love it more than WarnerBros Discovery, no matter how many times they say, we love it, even though we're not going to release anything about it under our protection. But, yeah. The shelve negotiations ended, and it was sold, and it's now set to release next year in 2026. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it, and everyone was freaking rejoicing over it. Like, we won, yeah, and whatnot. Like, that was such a war zone for that. But it's good that it's going to come out. Now, if only we can get other projects like the Scoob movie and that Scoob sequel movie and the completed Batgirl movie, just like sell it to someone else if you want, instead of locking in a vault, even though it's done. But considering, and I think it's going to be harder to get Batgirl out because the DC EU is dead, and the whole complicated nonsense that happened with the Flash certainly stopped it. But yeah. We could get the Scoob Holiday Special, but we'll see. Also, Wizards of the Coast had a DMCA takedown to a Baldur's Gate 3 Stardew Valley mod, which was awesome to hear that there was a Stardew Valley take on Baldur's Gate 3. And the creator was certainly approving it, and Wizards of the Coast DMCA'd it. And then the same day, they announced, issued a statement saying that it happened in error and apologized to them, saying it was issued mistakenly and we are sorry about that, and that they are in the process of fixing that now so fans in the Stardew community can continue to enjoy this great mod. Okay, I'm just going to ask this very very specific question. How do you screw that up? How do you make that by mistake? Like, look, I've never done a copyright claim or anything. It's just, I don't think I have something that could be warranting of me taking down a video unless they make slanderous accusations about me on the video. That's a whole different topic. But I'm confused. Wouldn't there be like a lengthy filing of sorts and someone could have stopped it at any time? Like I could imagine this being Nintendo doing it because Nintendo is going to be Nintendo, but it's not. It's the Wizards of the Coast doing this. And how do they do it in error? Like, that just bugged me for some reason for a little bit. I was like, how do you make that kind of error? But I don't know. I don't handle copyright law. Meanwhile, House of the Dragon is set to begin production on the next season, and yeah, here's the thing. So, season 2 of House of the Dragon was not as well received by many. It started off good at first, and then it just kind of went ballistic for many. And honestly, I gave it less criticism. I stopped watching it for a little bit. I got the season on Blu-ray and 4K Steelbook, awesome. I'm willing to be a little bit forgiving because of the strike that happened that kind of wrecked their momentum. But George R. R. Martin, Grimm, came out and called out the series' second season, and now he did this Martin promised to dive into, quote, everything that's gone wrong with House of the Dragon. And in August 2024, he made this announcement, and it's a promise he kept. And he called out the plot elements related to Aegon and Helena's children, as he expressed concern for how future seasons of the show might play out. The post was eventually removed from the offer's website without explanation, but not before thousands of fans and HBO got a hold of it. And now Ryan Condal has shared updated thoughts regarding Martin's misgreetings during a recent interview with Entertainment Weekly, saying that, the strained relationship with the Game of Thrones creator that stings for the showrunner the most, saying it was disappointing. I will simply say I've been a fan of A Song of Ice and Fire for almost 25 years, and working on the show has been truly one of the great privileges of not only my career as a writer, but my life as a fan of science fiction and fantasy. George himself is a monument, a literary icon, in addition to a personal hero of mine, and was heavily influential on me on coming up as a writer. He acknowledged that it may be unfortunate for Martin fans when House of the Dragon doesn't play quite like its source material, Fire and Blood. However, he explained that the process of adapting a beloved book for small screens can result in complicated situations, saying it's an incomplete history and it requires a lot of joining of the dots and a lot of invention as you go along the way. I will simply say I made every effort to include George in the adaptation process. I really did over the years, and we really enjoyed a mutual fruitfulness. I thought a really strong collaboration for a long time, but at some point as we got deeper down the road, he just became unwilling to acknowledge the practical issues at hand in a reasonable way. He then continued saying about the roadblocks occurred, saying, and I think as a showrunner, I have to keep my practical producer hat on and my creative writer, lover of the material hat on at the same time. At the end of the day, I just have to keep marching on not only the writing process forward, but also the practical parts of the process forward for the sake of the crew, the cast, and for HBO, because that's my job, so I can only hope that George and I can rediscover that harmony someday. And that every creative decision takes months, if not years, to finalize, and everything goes through him before it hits the screens. He said the goal is to not only make the show for Game of Thrones readers, but a massive television audience too. And yeah, they have taken a few hits in recent years, although a few projects have been sold since Game of Thrones first took off. And there is A Night of the Seven Kingdoms coming out soon, and there's also no Targaryen-centered spin-offs rumored to be Aegon the Conqueror. So, can we get Henry Cavill? People want him to be Aegon the Conqueror. And George R. R. Martin says that he's already calling the Night of the Seven Kingdoms a faithful adaptation. And here's the thing. And I get George R. R. Martin's issues. I get it, but does it here's the thing. It's sort of like how I struggle with writing. Like, I have all these wild ideas in my head, and then when I write it, I just struggle to get that imagination. Like, think about this. I do writing sometimes, and I struggle with trying to tell the story I want to tell. But here's the thing. I have the time, since these are just fan projects, I have the time, and I'm allowed to go as far as I can with writing it. But I always struggle trying to get that image in my head to be described in printed writing. For Game of Thrones, I don't know how George R. R. Martin handles his writing process. I've heard various stories about how he does it. But trying to adapt it completely for television is a different beast entirely. Like, there's a lot of things you can do with television, and especially movies. But this is like some ideas that are just so wacky and insane that it's kind of hard to really adapt it one-to-one. And but the books were so detailed and dense that it could be told, the Song of Ice and Fire series, up until it caught up with the books, and then George R. R. Martin had finished the other two books he had left to do in time, and the book of The Winds of Winter still hasn't come out. And at the rate things are going, I would not be surprised if it never does. But, especially at George R. R. Martin's age. But when it comes to Fire and Blood, here's the thing. Fire and Blood is a completely different beast compared to A Song of Ice and Fire, because those are traditional books. Fire and Blood is told from a historical perspective, like a history book, albeit a very loosely take on it, because, well, it's being told not from a person who was around during that time. It's told by 3 different people, and one of them, who was around during that time, was known to be very horny. So, yeah, and the other thing about that character is that I think his name was Mushroom. I haven't read the book in a while, but my thought was, wait, how come he hasn't shown up in the show yet? Like, you can't just say he didn't exist. Like, because then the book kind of, like, there has to be some connective thread that makes this possible. I don't know if they mentioned Mushroom in the show to establish that he did exist. But my thought was like, wait. You mean, what is Mushroom? Like, if this is because they don't want to have him show up because they already had another famous little person running around in the Game of Thrones series, Tyrion. I get that, but it's like, if you remove him from the context of his take on history, it's like, then who? Because I think at one point George did try to say that this is like the quote true story of what happened in Fire and Blood historical book about it. But it's like, okay, if that's the true story, then where did Mushroom come from? If he's not in the show, then where did the stuff that from the book came from? Since George was hands-on on the project. But I'm just thinking to myself, wait, where's Mushroom then? He has to be there to at least justify the book, so we can get that inaccuracy of history going on with the other 2 people. It's just kind of weird that they haven't shown him yet, and it's been 2 seasons, and they have plans to do a total of 5 potentially. And yeah, it's just kind of confusing to me. But back to what I was trying to say. But like, when I write, I struggle trying to get that vision in my head to be done on the printed page, so to speak. I type it. I don't write. But if I'm having such a nightmare trying to get the vision in my head to be typed down on the computer, I can't imagine how nightmarish it must be trying to get the completed vision in someone's head that's already written down and then adapted to television or movie especially television, since they have to operate on a much smaller budget, unless you want to go Game of Thrones final season's movie length budgets. And the less I talk about that, how that ended, the better. But yeah. So yeah, I hope George R. R. Martin and Condal will work it out. I'm just hoping for the best. So, anyways, Zach Krager talked about his upcoming reboot for the Resident Evil universe. And it says that it will be unlike the other previous films, so it will actually be Resident Evil and not just a zombie movie filled with cloning technology and characters who just are vaguely like the Resident Evil characters. Is that it? Yeah, I just need to get that out of me because I still recall seeing the clone stuff and I'm just like, okay, look, I get the director of those movies and the star of the movie were married and there's probably a bias there, but like, what's with all the clones and the superpowers? Like, the zombies I could buy having powers if the scientific experiments went so badly like that, but like, I don't recall them having like supernatural powers. They were just grotesque monstrosities that were slowly but surely gaining intelligence and becoming more Lovecraftian, but not really magic based. It just kind of boggles my mind. But he tries to go ahead and say that it will not be like the other movies that happened, so good luck with that. And Tom Hardy, speaking of movies of Sony, since Sony is involved with the Resident Evil movie, Tom Hardy talked about how there were plans to get close. They were closing in on plans to get a Venom crossover with Spider-Man. That never happened. And yeah, Tom Hardy revealed that we got as close as I could possibly imagine getting, and talking about how he didn't know how to answer that at first. Probably because if he tried to answer it, it would get very problematic. Saying we got as close as possible imagining apart from doing a film together, which I would have loved to have done because that just means so much fun. And for all the reasons that you explained ultimately in there, when asked if studio politics got in the way of that, Hardy went on to say that he wanted the crossover to please younger fans, saying fundamentally for me it would be for the kids because, you know, as much as adults love superhero films, as you can tell by the box office, when they're successful, I think I'm constantly no matter how children how important these characters are, and they don't know why their favorite characters aren't in films together. Well, Hardy didn't outright accuse Sony or Marvel of ruining it. It's clear that his answer to that movie adaptation of the fan favorite Marvel anti-Venom hero Venom was constrained, saying we were given a set of boundaries and we were just really privileged to be able to play with a much beloved IP like Venom in a way that we were allowed to play. Yeah. You had... Okay, this is the thing that kind of annoys me when they mention that. I was like, okay, let's see if I get this straight. So you're gonna have Null show up in the last movie of Venom, who doesn't even play a massive role other than setting up stage for stuff that may not happen. And you're planning to reboot the Marvel Sony universe with Miles Morales being the main character of that. But there's also rumors that they might introduce Miles Morales into the MCU, so that's gonna cause confusion for people. And then you go on to say, and we don't even know what's going to happen with Null, especially after the events of Venom 3, since there's not going to be another one, especially after the failure that was Kraven the Hunter. Should have been expected. And there were plans to do Asian Venom, and there were also plans to do a Sinister 6 movie, which really would have been the Sinister 5 versus Null, so they were screwed. And it's like, here's the thing. The one thing I feel like that could have fixed everything, that could have probably resalvaged the Sony movie, is if they had been allowed to have some of the MCU involvement in it, have some MCU help. And the biggest thing I feel like that they could probably, emphasis on probably, fix all this is if they just let Null show up in Doomsday or Secret Wars and have a fight with God King Doom. The King in Black versus God King Doom. That would be awesome. Like, it'd be such an awesome moment to see, and I would totally forgive Sony a little bit for that. I won't forgive them for Morbius, but that's a completely different beast of a segment. But it would fix a lot of things for people. Meanwhile, John Wick 5 is happening. Hooray! And there's going to be an anime film prequel. With Keanu Reeves to voice the character. Breathtaking! And the prequel would basically focus on how he plans to complete the impossible task. The killing of all his rivals in one night in order to free himself from the obligation to the High Table and earn the right to be with the love of his life, Helen. Which will end tragically. Like the live-action films, they said the animated movie will deliver highly stylized and defined action that John Wick fans expected will be aimed at a more mature audience. Isn't it already a big mature audience, besides being a massive action film? And also, everyone loves Keanu Reeves these days, especially after John Wick and Cyberpunk. And the fact that, oh yeah, I just remember this. I recall this. Cyberpunk even acknowledged that Keanu Reeves is an actual person in the Cyberpunk universe, and they acknowledged, yeah, you look like... Johnny said, hey, why do you look like Keanu Reeves? Though they never explained that part. It would be kind of awesome if it turns out he's actually a clone, if they had that technology at the time, but like that's a completely different beast of a topic. Yeah, and I haven't talked about Avengers Doomsday either, especially that casting announcement. I might wait on that. I might make a separate series of that on the NRC brand. We'll see. I'm gonna give it some thought on that. I have some thumbnail ideas, but beyond that, I don't have anything. But like, one of the things that was hopeful for people was rumors that Halle Berry, who played the OG Storm in the X-Men films of Fox, especially since they were bringing in some of the X-Men Fox actors back, they were hoping she would come back as Storm down the road, and she came out and says, keep waiting, not gonna be there. Which made me go, yeah, I'll believe it until I see it, because let's be real, X-23 came back, the actress who played X-23, who said, I'm not gonna be in that movie in Deadpool and Wolverine. Then she shows up. Then all that other stuff happened, especially the return of the Human Torch and what were also planned, and also the return of the original Blade, Wesley Snipes, after it was said he wasn't supposed to come back because of past issues with Ryan Reynolds that they got over. So, yeah, I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it. And there's also rumors going around that Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars might also do some Roger Rabbit-like stuff, like having the anime characters show up in their animated appearance. And I'm just like, oh, for fuck's sake. Not because it would be bad or anything or out of place. Like, we love Fruit Frame Roger Rabbit, and I definitely love Looney Tunes Back in Action, despite its problems. And my childhood with Space Jam, so the original, not the later one they made. But my only thought process about this was, like, with how big the cast they've been trying to make, I feel like they should just make 4 films at this point. Like, the amount of people they've already announced in the thing, in that chair postmodern style they went, it just made me think, would it make sense to make like 4 films then? Like 2 films? Even if you go 3 hours for both, that's gonna be too much. I'm like, wait. At this point, if you extend the runtime to 3 hours for 2 parts, it's not going to be enough to cover everything going on. And instead, Avengers this finale to the multiverse saga should be 4 parts at this point. And I already have some names for it, and I'm not even asking for money at this point for that, even though I probably should. I said they could call these the films. They can keep Avengers Doomsday as the start, Avengers Secret Wars as the finale, but the 2 other films they should do is Avengers Incursion and Avengers Battle World. There, I fixed the problem with 0 effort. I just used names from stuff that was established in the comics. Oh god. it's just with the amount of stuff, characters they have, and all the plot threads they have to try and resolve, and all the legacy plot threads probably, and bringing back so many actors and characters over the last 25 years. Heck, even further than that, since we're including Blade, they should just probably just go all in and just be like 4 films, 3 hours max for each, just go all out. So beyond that, moving on, Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4 gets an announcement, finally. And when they heard what the title of the film was, people immediately wanted to cry. I certainly wanted to when I heard what it was. It's called Spider-Man: A Brand New Day. Okay, before I get to that, Tom Holland wasn't at the event because he's filming Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey with virtually every other actor in his massive epic, but like, moving on. Brand New Day. Everyone remembers One More Day, and Brand New Day followed that. And now there's rumors that Mr. Negative is showing up, so I'll be alright with that. But like, Zendaya might not be showing up as much in there, so that story with MJ and him is probably over for the time being until probably Spider-Man, until after Secret Wars saga is over. But since Spider-Man 4 takes place between Doomsday and Secret Wars, that explains why he's not going to be in Doomsday for now, but he's set to have a role in Secret Wars. One thing I did want to mention is that there's rumors that Spider-Man might get a new love interest for the time being with probably Black Cat. Honestly, with how the comics have been treating Spider-Man, I'm pretty sure that's the route they're going, since they've broken up like twice now since the Zeb Wells started, since Zeb Wells' run happened. And the less I talk about that run with Paul, the better. And how the editors are getting more and more annoyed with the whole, we want Parker to get married again. Or, in my opinion, it's less about him getting married and more about, can you just make the guy freaking happy for 1 minute? And by 1 minute, we mean for a number of years, instead of constantly upending his life, making him miserable, constantly trying to make him lose his mind, and showing him that everything he does is ultimately pointless. Just let the character be happy. Is it really that too much to ask, Tom? Tom Brevoort went on Substack on his article. I want to mention this. He said that if you don't like Parker not being married to MJ, don't buy the book, or just read the Ultimate book. And I'm just like, dude, look, I'm trying to be nice about this. That was an awful way to go about that, because look, if you don't want Parker to be married to MJ, fine. I'm kind of accepting. I've already got my fix with Ultimate Spider-Man being the happy guy, but people want the OG Peter Parker, the one that was been established for decades, to at least stop being in a state of constant misery. Like, he has become more miserable than ever in the last 10 years alone. Every time when he gets some stability, some cosmic event happens out of nowhere that upends his life, loses the trust of the heroes. Like, this is the thing that annoyed me. When MJ was going to tell Peter Parker she wants to move in, and then when she talks about how Peter Parker, when is he never a mess? When is he not a mess? And they're laughing about it and being happy. All of a sudden, there's a bright light. We cut away from that to several months later, and Peter Parker is wounded, injured, and in a massive crater in a destroyed large part of a state. And it's like, does no one at Marvel see the problem here? And then you learn that Peter Parker is once again out of nowhere miserable, has lost the trust of all the heroes again, and MJ hates him. I must stress, this happened immediately when Parker and MJ were thinking about moving in together. it just feels like Marvel can't imagine Parker having some stability because they want to treat him still as a teenager in high school, even though he's like, what, in his 30s at this point in canon? And he's been stuck in his 30s since the late 80s? Mid 80s at best? It's just so freaking annoying. I feel that they keep doing this and they keep acting like they don't know what's going on. So since they say don't like it, don't buy it, fine. I'm not buying it. I haven't bought it in years. I'm continuing to not buy it. I'll buy Ultimate Spider-Man. I'll enjoy that happy Parker. His life's currently upended, but he is in a state of stability with his wife. His wife still loves him, and he's not in a constant state of abject misery. Yes, he's worried for his family, but he still has a family to care for. His son and him are bonding, being superheroes, and fighting the Maker and all that in his illegal regime. It's just so whiplashing. So whiplashing. But moving on, Beyond the Spider-Verse, the movie that was supposed to come out last year ended up not coming out, and then there was a whole issue with the actors. The less I talk about that, the better. But Beyond the Spider-Verse is committed to its 2027 release date, and we even got some first looks at it. And they promise that it's going to be the massive finale to the trilogy. And Lord and Chris Miller, I'm wishing you luck, especially with everything that happened with the Miles Morales, the voice actor. And it's insane. I'm looking forward to it. I hope it works out well, and I hope everyone wins in the end, if we get a home run. And last, and certainly not least, what the intermission clip teased, Marvel Rivals Season 2 was announced and is set to drop on April 11th. And the first trailer was shown, and when I saw it, it just made me go, you clearly had planned to have this last forever, Krakoa, or at least for a longer time than that was given. But yeah, Krakoa is back in the mainstream news, as they are now set to have the Hellfire Gala be the title for Season 2, with the debuting characters of Ultron, hooray, and for the people who are obsessed with her thighs, who have been obsessed with her looks, and are currently drooling over her latest Skin X Revolution thing that leaked out, and have been making tons and tons and tons of fan art, and especially ones where they're fetishizing her thighs. Emma Frost. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I don't particularly care. I don't have much of an opinion on sex appealing games, but it's like, wait, you mean to tell me there's a video game that doesn't care? That's like, hey, we want to make women sexy. Do it. Okay. And it fits Emma Frost because she can be very provocative in her outfits. Quite a lot. So they can't argue that this is unrealistic, because that is, and I must stress, people were also, and then there was a massive debate about the new skin that came out, the new leaked skin about Emma Frost, this X Revolution that shows a very good amount of skin. We're freaking out about it. And my response to that was, you did not read the comics, did you? NetEase at least understands what's going on here. And Emma Frost does dress provocatively, so yeah. Like, that is who the character does. That is what the character does. Even when she was both a villain and a hero, she's dressed rather provocatively. So this is perfectly in character for her. She likes to flaunt her beauty as a weapon. So yeah, like, yeah, move on. Like, and of course, when I heard this stuff, I was just like, and also when they keep saying it like, this is unrealistic, I'm just like, okay, every time when I hear that, I just get annoyed, because we're in a universe where there's a synthetic AI android running around leading an army of robots. We have a talking raccoon. We have a tree that's a colossal beast of a warrior. And we have aliens running around intermingling with people. We have a guy who's from the 40s that's alive in his prime. And we have mutants. What exactly is how do I say this? Oh yeah, what exactly is the realism to this? Yeah, so Ultron comes to the Krakoan in this trailer, comes to the Krakoan gateway somehow, and crashes the party more or less, leading to a massive battle. And they also reveal that Emma Frost will be a Vanguard character who can give herself damage reduction by going into her diamond form and chokeslam people while insulting them. So thus, all the people who lost their minds over Lady Dimitrescu can now get their fetishes fulfilled once more. And she even has the ability to primarily fire a beam of energy that damages her opponents, and her ultimate fire prospects a barrier forward. In her normal form, she has a psychic spear ability that pulls an enemy's sentience into a crystal form, damaging them by attacking, shattering the crystal. And like I said, she can chokeslam people, so I'm pretty certain we're going to get a whole bunch of people play Captain America, especially since in the comics they have established that Captain America looks at Emma Frost and says, "You remind me of my mother." And Emma Frost basically cut a deal with him saying if he calls for her, he has to do one simple command. And I laugh at this still to seeing it, where he has to call her mommy and she'll show up. And I laughed so hard at that. So many other people laughed at that. So yeah. And like I mentioned, the horny community of gamers and comic book fans and even the people who like sexy women in fiction lost their minds and are making tons and tons of fan art, even though the season is not out for, at the time of this video, another few days. However, I'm still waiting for Kitty Pryde to show up so we can see how they work in her phasing powers. I'm curious to know how they work that. And Emma Frost was like, I saw that coming eventually. Daredevil's also being rumored to be worked on, and they're planning to change their schedule system. Ultron is set to come out after Emma Frost comes out after this. He's set to show up in the Marvel 2.5 update, which would be released in late May, and April would be when Emma Frost comes out with Season 2's release, and they plan to release a new character every single month. Their plan is to keep up with the live service system. Yeah, probably now should have been considered a bad time to fire your staff when you fired the original team, because after that you should have definitely expanded that to include the fact that you've changed your live service strategy to be an every month kind of thing. But yeah, but yeah. Also, there is one thing I wanted to mention. I forgot to mention this. Emma Frost's ultimate move is Psychic Seduction, or Psionic Seduction, and it damages and stuns enemies in range and locks them out of activating their ultimate abilities, and enemies who are caught in the blast for long enough will be physically compelled to move toward Frost, making it easier for her to grab them, kick them, slam them, beat the living crap out of them, or make them throw themselves off the cliff and get killed. And clearly, people are pointing out that Marvel Rivals developers have seen the player's thirst issues and seem to be leaning heavily into it. Oh man. I've tried Marvel Rivals and I have lost, and I've gotten my ass kicked in every PvP match, so I've been stuck to doing just regular PvE matches just to get something in. Like, I enjoy the game, but it's like when you're constantly losing so much and you haven't gotten a single win and you're not good at planning out strategies because you're not really an active talker on the game, you just kind of, dear. Like, I used to win matches in Overwatch, but I know Overwatch is not like Marvel Rivals to some extent. There are some similarities, but still, Marvel's more popular now. And Overwatch 2 is too busy cannibalizing itself into oblivion. And then they started making the whole point of being Overwatch 2 completely pointless. So just call it Overwatch. But, yeah. Good luck with all that. I hope all the fans, when Emma Frost is released to the public on April 11th, are able to not publicly humiliate themselves on live stream and drool, amongst other things that I do not want to say because I do not want to get fucking attacked. Mostly from the restriction service. But yeah, that's about it for everything. This was like, what, about an hour, probably 2 hours? It's been a long while since I had that, but I just had a lot to cover. This is your host, Zach Brown of Neo Reality Entertainment and Neo Reality Collective. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, check out my content in the description below. Stay tuned for more. Follow me on Blue Sky and everywhere else. I'll see y'all again next time. Stay tuned for this last outro, and I'll see y'all again. Peace and take care, and take care of yourselves and each other. Peace. Oh, and by the way, keep enjoying NRE 10. It's certainly a thing.
And that was our latest edition of Neo Reality Collective. Be sure to follow and support NRE creator Eric Brown on Twitter and YouTube. Check the links in the description below, and we'll see you all next time.